we can start work in school again.
Right.
The schools will have us.
Good. Okay, over to Connie. Tell us about your history.
So obviously, we've been playing and coaching and doing tournaments and all that sort of stuff. And so I'm really grateful for that, because it sounds like you guys are still struggling significantly with that. So I'm sorry to hear it. Neil, loved the podcast yesterday. How much are you short for your requirements to build your fifth court?
A couple of £1,000, but I'm not too concerned yet. So
Neil, I'd be delighted from our company to donate $500 towards your flooring. And possibly you could say that, this person who has nothing to do with my club is doing this. How about everybody else putting in a little bit? So let's talk offline about that, but I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, a little bit about me. What I do is I kind of talk a lot and I action a lot. I'm very good at following through, which most people aren't, I think, to do with things. I eat, sleep, breathe, drink squash 24/7 and have done for 40 years, and also since I've been in the US since 2002. I absolutely delight in achieving success for things that people say are not possible. It's kind of my Australian quirkiness, if you like. And certainly the success that I've had really has been doing things my way. Of course, we have to have the cat going across the screen. And I absolutely love doing that. So I consult nationally and internationally, helping people with whatever they need, whether it's a ball machine, whether it's to have courts built, whether it's setting up a club, whether it's deciding whether someone wants to lease or buy and what the rationale is, concept drawing, court building. And then once everything is set up, you can have the most beautiful club in the world, but if you don't have adequate programming or a good person to run it, it's just going to fall apart anyway. And there's some very good examples of that, I would say, everywhere. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got those examples of the crappiest court in the world, and yet they have this vibrant program going. So how does that work? So that's by way of introduction.
Perfect. I'm going to add Ross and Joe, thank you so much for coming. We want to be very brief on introductions. Joe, I have seen you lots on the forum. You do lots in squash. Yeah, you're obviously very, very keen. I'm a bit ignorant about you. I'm very sorry. Ross, I know you very well for what you've done. You owe me lots of trees, by the way. So, Joe, introduce yourself, please, and welcome.
Yes, I'm Joe. I left school after doing A-levels and decided that for a couple of years I'd do squash, and within 2 years I was head pro at probably one of the biggest clubs in the Midlands, Squash Leicester. So I thought, this is a good way of making a living. Really enjoy introducing people to the game. Probably I've introduced maybe close to 2,000 people to squash. Right. Done some traveling with playing some sort of lower grade tournaments. I've taken people to different areas of the world playing squash, which has been really good fun. And I'm really keen to try and get things across to some of the clubs that are probably having a bit of a hard time at the moment. I had a meeting online meeting with the manager at our club, and I said, look, it's 2 months. This was a couple of weeks ago. I said, this is going to be 2 months before we open in any form. We're probably going to be a little bit later than that, because where I coach as a school, so they're sort of very, very keen that there isn't the public to pupil transmission. So we could be somewhere in the summer, I think, before we open. But my big thing was, we need to be starting to think about this now, not in a month's time, in 2 months' time. We need to have something ready to go. And, we need to start building, a program that gets a lot of people into the club very, very quickly. Yeah. So I envisage we might be as much as 20% down, maybe even higher than that. So we need to be, ready to go with learning to play racquetball, learning to play squash, get people in, even for free to start off with. Let's get people in let's get people learning the game and enjoying it,
Yeah.
and go from there. I'd like to say one thing. I had a chance to chat to Connie, and I really feel that the English clubs need to take on board what she says. We had an hour's chat probably about 2 months ago, and it was really refreshing to hear that side of things and looking at it in a more positive way. And we probably chatted, Connie, didn't we, for about an hour or so. It was great. I mean, it was great fun bouncing ideas off one another. But I think we in the UK have, because we grew up with it, we've treated it less as a business, and we need to be looking at that and saying, look, yes, it is people's spare time, but it's still a business. We still need to, provide enough funds to be able to keep the club open.
Yeah. I think, the title is The Business of Squash, and that definitely in the UK, not so much in America. And not what I'm doing is actually I'm trying to run a business, and that's sales, that's retention, renewals, etc., etc. It tends to be a bit of a dirty word in England when you say, oh, earn money out of squash. Well, why not? Everybody earns money out of something. So we're not cheating anybody for anything. So we're going to go into, we've got to be quite quick on this. So various business models. How can we have a successful club with 200 members and 3 or 4 courts without anything else apart from squash? So we've got about 20 seconds each to answer that. Neil.
Cool. Okay. Can I go second?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're going to try, because we have to be self-sufficient within our own club. We've got 5 sports, so 4 of the ones that are all trying to succeed as well. So as long as I can do 20 courts a day, roughly, that gives us enough income to keep our head above water, really. No, probably 18 courts a day.
Okay.
On each of the 4, actually. So that doesn't have to be 5 times 18. So yeah.
So on your model of a club, which is a members club, which not everybody understands unless you come from England,
Inclusive approach, one
you
pathway.
can run on that with low costs without anything else.
Well, because we have to proportionally pay for the manager and the grounds person that covers the whole club. So it's not quite straightforward for us, because it's not. So I can only speak for. We have to pay a percentage of the overheads. So it would be far less money if we didn't have to pay that. So it's not quite so simple for us.
Okay, Brian.
Is it not a case that with all clubs you have your overheads to cover, plus, and it's a dirty word in the UK for sure, that clubs have to make profit, because you have to make profit to put money back into the club to update it, clean it, do whatever you like with it. I've come from several members clubs that they're associated with other sports, maybe tennis or cricket. Whichever way it is, there's got to be a budget there. And I've failed to see in some of the UK older clubs, and a lot of clubs in the UK were established between 1950 something and 1970 something. Nobody seems to sit down and work out what the actual overheads of the club are. And the point that Connor raised, I think I put up on on Squash World and a couple of others. When I started playing, a squash court was about £2 for a court, and I started playing in, let's say, the very late 70s. And most clubs are charging £4, or around the local area where I am. So that's sort of 100% rise in near enough 40 years.
Yeah, it's not enough, is it?
Yeah,
it's not enough.
I dare anybody on the forum or anybody listening to this to show me something else that in 40 years has gone up by 100%.
Yeah.
The pint of beer has gone up from probably about 50p to, I don't know what it is in the UK at the moment, probably £4.50, £5 a pint.
Yeah.
And yet squash it continually, I think, undervalues itself.
We have the advantage in Switzerland, where I am at least, is we have 3 clubs which are owned by councils, and they're rolling in money. They don't care. So they can run a loss. It doesn't matter. So that's a business a business plan of sorts, a luxury to have in some ways, frustrating for Connie or someone like myself who want to get squash moving. But I know that squash will be there next year and the year after. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I would say, you know, we've got to look at a monthly direct debit rather than a pay and play. I think it's very difficult for clubs to look at it and go, you know, we can survive on this amount of, you know, this amount of members playing this many times. I think you have to make it more simple than that. You have to go with, you know, this is what it costs to be a member of this place on a monthly basis, and you know, and you play as much as you want on that. And I've advised probably 4 clubs within this area to go that route, possibly 20 years ago. And the club that I'm playing at now, just socially, survived basically on that. It was having no revenue in the summer. It's a cricket club in the summer, had no revenue in the summer. So, you know, I said to them, look, just forget about, you know, per court, you might have 2 or 3 people out of your 100 and whatever leaving because they can't see the value of it. Yeah. But, you know, you'll have so many more people playing, so many more people in the bar, et cetera, et cetera. But from a running the club point of view, you haven't got to think about how many members, how many times they're playing. You've just got to think of how many members. It's dead easy. It's taking that, you know, that part out of it. So, but I think, you know, going back, yes, in the SRA days, I'm pretty sure, you know, 75 was the number, 75 players per court. So what did you say, 200, 300 players? When I 150.
Was per court.
Yeah. I think you might struggle because people, I suppose, play a little bit more in this day and age. You know, playing once a week is not going to get you anywhere, is it?
Yeah. But we have the other model, like Neil's model is like halfway down the road. So you pay so much per year and £2.50 per court. So people are responsible when they play, which is another model. What's your model, Connie, for membership?
So we have a couple of different models. In the US, predominantly it's membership based, and you'd kind of say you pay $100 a month. I mean, some clubs are $60 a month, some are $160 a month. The ones that I work at, we cater for the middle of the road, which is $100 a month. In terms of revenue to membership, it's probably about 5 to 1, so that I anticipate whatever my membership is, I will do 5 times as much as that in revenue, particularly with junior programming. So, I mean, the figures will, you know, surprise you unless you are familiar with the US programs, but we have 3 courts and we would do about $600,000 a year. And as I say, 3/4 of that or more is just from the coaching and lessons and so on. So we, for our 3 courts, like to do about $200 to $400 per hour. And then we anticipate our coaches getting paid of the revenue that comes in, probably at about 40%.
Right.
How many members have you got, Connie?
At pre-pandemic, we had 150 at our facility in Maryland, and junior, and that's really all we could fit in because we only run the junior programming till 6 o'clock, 6:30 at night. We could run it all year round and just not have members, quite frankly, and I'd be better off, but I don't own the building. I just lease the space for the squash courts, and then I pay extra for the locker rooms and the use of the gym and so on. At our club in Charlotte, which has been open for about 5 years, pre-pandemic, we had 90 members there. And again, the school programming, which I've been highly successful at doing. I've started probably 25 or 30 schools since I've started here in the US. Nobody does that. No one seems to have the ability, or actually, you know, the main reason I've been successful is that I just, unless someone says no, I just keep bugging them because in my, and maybe I can get away with that because I'm a woman and maybe because I'm an Aussie and I talk a bit funny, but, you know, people are busy. And so if they don't respond, I assume they're busy. And then if they just keep on not responding, I just keep on bugging them. And eventually it's like, oh my God, what is it you want? We'll just do it because they're sort of sick of hearing from me. Yeah. But generally they'll tell me, it's only because you've persevered and bugged me that I'm going to do this. Yep. Because nobody likes to change the status quo. Like no one likes change. Even if the status quo is bad or unhelpful or not really working, everybody has their own self-interest. So if you want to implement some sort of cultural change or some sort of, you know, and this could be with membership or management or who or schools or whatever, you have to understand that people don't want to do it. Okay, it's like you crash your car and you phone up the insurance company. No, we don't want to pay out, but if you bug them enough, you know, okay, they'll do something for you. Like, they don't want to do it. And so I work from that premise, and therefore, if people say, no, I don't want to do it, or no, I'm not interested, I just assume they want me to call them back next week.
I think it's somewhat simple.
Perseverance is everything.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with schools over here, that you've got to be, you know, on there all the time. Over here, quite often, if they say no, they'll tell you that they've engaged a coaching club to go in and do all their coaching, and they don't have any funds anymore. But there's so many schools over here that you can get yourself into them, and once you start getting into them, it does start to breed success out of it.
Yeah.
Well,
is that persistence?
Well, with the schools, there's two things. One is, like anything, you need to approach it from a multi-source. So if I wanted to get into a middle school down the road, I'm not just going to like wander in there and say, hi, I'm me. And they'll go, you know, what squash? I don't even know what you're talking about. I will find a couple of kids that go to that school. I will get them interested. I will get their parents interested. I might find one or two people on the board, maybe some teaching staff, just through contacts, just getting these people. Because when I go in to attack that school, the vice principal, the head, whoever it may be, it's got to be multi-pronged. And I need to have the parents phoning them and the kids stopping the athletic director in the hallway and saying, I really want to play squash. Like, I think it would be really good for the school, because it has to be an easy yes. It's like if you want a stroke, okay, you really have to demonstrate it and make it really easy for the referee to call stroke. Okay, if you don't, they're only going to give you a let. Well, I want to go in for the stroke straight off. So I'm going to do this multi-pronged approach. Then I bluff a lot. You've met me for 5 minutes and you can probably see that that's what it is. But when I start a school, I'll have two kids, okay? And I'll say, okay, you two are the captains of the team. They'll go, who's the team? I'll go, well, you're the team, but you have to bring in two friends next week. So now we've got 4, okay? And so now I say, oh, good, we've got a school team. So now I can go to another school and say, I've got a school team set up at this school. They want to play somebody, because kids always want to play everybody else. And so they'll say, well, okay, well, you've got that school set up. Yeah, I've got the school set up. We've got kids playing, you know, they're training, the parents are really interested. And so then I'll develop another school. Now you get 2 schools, you're easily going to get 6, because then all of a sudden it becomes like a school sport, like a club program sort of thing. And a lot of that is just bluff and belief in myself that I can set that up and achieve it. And I've done it so many times. In places like in Charlotte, there was only 4 people in the whole city who played squash. So when I go to the schools, they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. So I'd have to take them like a PSA match or something and say, well, this is what I'm talking about. But it's just explaining it, getting a multi-prong attack to help you sell the story, and then using a bit of bluff to bring it all together. You know, people like to play it safe. It's like, oh my goodness, I don't want to say that there's going to be 5 kids when there's only going to be 3. Why? Who cares? Everyone's going to have fun. I started off with 2 kids in 2002. I now have thousands that are playing, but you have to start somewhere. And then you just keep it going, especially if you have only 2 kids and you tell them they're both the captains, because everyone wants to be the captain. And so you just move forward that way. So in terms of having, you know, 200, whatever we started talking about, 200 members and 4 courts, I mean, of course, it has to be a balance. If you had 200 members and 4 courts, it seems to me that a lot of people are vying for the 5 to 7 o'clock slot. People after work, maybe you get a lunchtime crew, maybe you get an early morning crew. Schools are pretty good if they can come in from 2 o'clock through to 5 o'clock, but then you've always got that jam between the kids wanting to come at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and the adults wanting to come in. But for me, getting the juniors in and making a lot of revenue, developing players, running tournaments is really the benchmark of our success.
I think you
Connie, you do. Sorry.
I think you hit the nail on the head. You're a salesperson, Connie.
I'm a salesperson.
Yeah. So
I mean,
if you don't, no matter how good we think squash is, if you don't sell it, it's not going to sell. It's in.
No,
Could I ask Connie a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is taking it. The schools coming to you rather than you taking it to the schools.
Very good question. In fact, Joe, we've done a couple of things, and I think someone mentioned earlier, that the schools won't come and pay or whatever. Who cares? I've had one school coming, they do their PE classes at one of my clubs. So the school is 5 minutes drive away. The kids have 45 minutes for PE. And so, hi, Mrs. Green, how are you? We just said to them, would you like to bring your kids over to have PE classes? We'll do it for free. And they are like, it's going to be really hard to coordinate. It's, we only have 45-minute time slots. It's going to take 5 minutes to drive over, 5 minutes come back. And we're like, doesn't matter. We're just going to do it. It's going to be for free. We're not going to charge you. And so we introduced squash to, I think we had 185 or 225, whatever it was, kids from grade 3 to grade 8 that came in for 4 PE sessions over the course of 4 weeks. And so this is a fantastic way to get it out there. And we will do that again we're going for a walk with Joe.
He's showing us around his house.
The kettle's a noisy thing out.
I know, my cat's sort of wanting to do stuff too.
No kettle, not cat.
And so the idea, do it for free. Do it for free or charge a little bit. If I'm working with a school, I'll do it for free. If I'm doing a come and try squash, I've learned that you need to charge something. If you charge nothing, people won't be committed to it. If you charge them $2, $4, $20, whatever it is, if they pay that, they're going to come. And so you have to charge something for a free trial, if you like.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. I think just in the UK, it's a lot more difficult because getting schools to go to clubs, I'm sure there's a lot of regulations where you are, but there's too many regulations over here. Plus, most schools don't have or only have access to a small minibus. So they can only carry maximum of 15 in one go. Most class sizes are anything up to 30. So the most successful way I found of doing it is to go into the school and say to the teachers, I'll take over your PE lesson. And at the same time, I'll teach you what I know in terms of developing squash in school. So that ticks a lot of boxes over here. And it is very successful in terms of enjoyment, but the link is missing where I can't get them into the club. Unfortunately, the clubs over here won't entertain the sort of things you're saying, like giving them free time or free courts or whatever. I've been turned down a couple of times, or the clubs have just turned around and said, we want £5 an hour for every court you use.
Yeah.
And then it becomes expensive and the schools can't afford it.
Yeah, we've done a lot of in schools as well, various ways. We go into the gym and, it doesn't have a flat wall, so you hit the ball, it goes flying off. It doesn't matter, as long as people are having fun. And then we've done that during lunchtime, just people come and play, or during PE classes. And then when we have the whole group of 15 or 30 kids sitting there at the end, we then will say, all right, the top 5 kids that can hit the ball back and forth with the coach as many times as possible will get to have a free session at the club, because then it becomes a competition, especially when you're working with boys, especially middle school age boys, like, from 10 to 15, highly competitive. The girls are cooperative, but the boys are competitive. And then you give them an award. So out of these 30 kids, you've got 5 kids who obviously play tennis or whatever. They're pretty handy with hitting, a ball and a racket. Then you give them an award and a little round of applause for everybody. And then, John sitting over there, he has won a free lesson with you or your coach or whatever. But at least if you do that process and you have these 5 winners that they've given something, you could have them all come in for a clinic or what it might be, but guaranteed you a couple of them will continue, and they may be able to afford to continue to do lessons. And then you have an into the school, because if the parent's happy, especially for those kids you know, who don't fit the athletic mold. You see, these are the ones I like working with. It's the ones who the parents say, you know, he's not really athletic. It's like, well, let me have him for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. Because the nerdy ones, which are the science and maths oriented ones, they're the ones that actually use their brains instead of brawn, because they don't have any brawn. You know, all the football players are using their brawn. But when they start being strategic about their play, which is very clever, they may be small, you know, tiny, it doesn't matter, as we know in squash. The parents and the athletic directors are so excited. Oh my God, you got my kid into something that no one else could get him into. What athletic directors or PE teachers hate to see is the kid that's not playing, you know, is the little group of kids that are sitting out and never played. You get into them, you're getting into the PE person and the athletic director's heart, because they're the ones he's concerned about. He's not concerned about the jocks. He's concerned about the ones that aren't doing stuff. And fortunately, some of those might be able to be okay at squash.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things that you can do is to sort of have a little bit of a mix of both of those. I mean, I've ran 6-week courses where the final week will be at the club. So you're signposting the club. You're telling the kids where the club is. We have a Saturday morning.
Right.
So you have 5 weeks that leads up to a little bit of a mini tournament on the 6th week.
Mm-hmm.
So they all get to see where the club is. They all get to see I mean, it's quite daunting to start off with the big court for somebody that's like 7, 8, 9. It's quite daunting.
Yeah.
So that, you know, you're sort of using the school to start off with. You know, most schools have got somewhere, not necessarily where they have a sports hall. Let's say the junior schools in the UK tend to have somewhere where the kids will eat canteen food or whatever. So invariably you have flat surfaces to work with, rebound walls. You just got to think a little bit more, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's all true. But I run 6-week courses, and I started off on the 6th week taking 5 kids from each class, and I ended up with 6 classes at the competition. And all I got from the teachers, the feedback I got from the teachers was, I'm excluding the majority of the kids that I've introduced squash to, because out of 30 kids, only 5 would go to the squash court, and they wanted all of them to go to the squash court, or all of them to stay in the club, in the school rather.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's yeah, you've just got to deal with these things and get around them somehow. You think about rebound walls. I use the dining room tables.
Yes,
Yeah.
Most schools have got these fold-up dining room tables with integrated stools.
Mm-hmm.
Just fold those up and use them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use them like that, or do you use them like that?
Upright.
I'm just trying to visit that way.
You get a tall, narrow wall, but they're two-sided. So you get one kid on one side, one kid on the other side. And they can't see each other.
No.
You put 5 tables out and you've got 10 kids working.
Yeah.
And if you've got a bigger hall, then you can put more tables out and get more kids working. I've also got rebound nets, so that in the summer when I go to the schools, I take the rebound nets into the playground and we work in the sun, and I quite often come home with sunburn. But again, 4 rebound nets means 8 kids working together.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the other thing I've learned from schools over here, so it's maybe digressing a little bit, I was part of an Ofsted report. They come around and they were there when I was there. And the one thing I was told beforehand was that the Ofsted reporters, or whatever they're called, want to see all the kids involved all the time. Now, when you've got 30 kids, how do you find anybody to get them all absolutely ingrained and engrossed in what they're doing? But that's what you've got to do. That's what schools expect over here.
We would be doing like, I'm quite happy to have 30 kids in my club of 4 courts, because I would have various stations. So you'd have, like 8 playing, you'd have a couple behind maybe refereeing and scoring and learning how to do that properly. I also like having the kids doing some analyses. I find them extremely useful, which is a reflection of my psychology background. So just to take a minute just to explain what I mean. So if I have a kid standing behind a court and all he has to do is to choose one of the players, and he counts how many times the kid hits the ball straight down the wall, say past the service box or something like that. And we've already told the kids to become a good squash player, you want to hit the ball down the wall 70% of the time. So what we're talking about is percentages. So the kid, for one of the children on the court, is noting the number of hits that he does, less serves, of course, because by definition, serves across courts, and noting the number of times it goes down the wall past a particular point. He then ends up with an equation, and the equation is number of shots that went down the wall over total number of shots. And that may be something like 10 shots went down the wall, he hit the ball 30 times. So therefore, his percentage is about 33%. So he's doing 3 in 10. Say 33% isn't enough. You have to be doing 70%. And I guarantee you that the kid who has done the analyses, who then goes on next, is more likely to have a higher percentage than he would have had because he's been thinking about this while he's been doing the analyses. And then you just tell the kids, you just keep on playing, but I want more and more shots down the wall, or increase the percentage, which is kind of saying the same thing. And by the end of the course of half an hour or 45 minutes, each of those kids are now hitting the ball down the wall between 50 and 70% of the time. So, but they're all engaged in doing an activity which is relevant and important, but you've got 2 kids outside the court and 2 kids inside the court. So for my 4 courts, I now have 4 kids engaged. Then I have doing some ghosting. I'll sort of set up some cones or whatever. And I say, okay, now you kids, I want you to do some ghosting, and you've got a few kids doing that. So every kid is completely engaged in something relevant and necessary. So it doesn't look like, you know, kids are like slacking off or not doing anything.
Yeah, there's ways to keep them all busy. This is going to cut off in about 3 minutes. I've sent you all, if you want to look into the messenger, I sent you all a link for another meeting, which we'll go on to in a few minutes. So we've got about 3 minutes left. So what are you guys doing for renewals? So keeping you and getting new members in, but keeping your old members. What are you doing, Neil?
So we sent out, it's difficult at the moment because people have been paying when they've not actually been able to play. So all we've done is said, we'll just renew and then we'll give you court credits. So one, we could find out how much interest was there for people actually renewing or waiting till the courts were open to renew. So there's 2 options there. So we've had probably a 60-70% take up. And then all we'll do is give them the court fees for £10 a month, which they would have paid in their membership in court fees. So we're guaranteeing to use that money, even though it clearly doesn't cost us the same amount of money as what we're charging to run the court. So it worked out quite well. Some people pay annually as well. But it's all messed up. It'd be so much easier without COVID.
Yeah, but you know, in some ways it helps us. It makes us move in different ways. So, I mean, you said you had a WhatsApp group for your fellow presidents in the Cambridge area. I have a WhatsApp group for all my clients. So I'm pestering them like Connie's pestering them. So as soon as it's open, I'll have guys having like 6 lessons a week who had 2 before to get them to catch up. So for me, it's catching up when COVID is finished or calmed down. It's about catching up. So you've got to pester your members in a nice way. So little message here and there. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Con, I was going to say that they're pestering me, which is great. I'm actually playing the reverse game. I keep sending them pictures and they're all going nuts saying, oh, when can we play? So they're actually going nuts. So rather than, it's interesting. I think I'm not sure one trick works. I'm listening to you all quite intently on how I'm thinking, would that work? But some of it will, some of it, I think it's just for me, it's a mixture of everything, I think, because it's been a bit of a nightmare for taking on what I've took on. So I'm quite happy to learn. I
think for all of us, it's about communication. It's not forgetting that we have clients out there. I keep in regular contact with all my personal clients. I work at several other clubs and I know they're actually working in the background, contacting all the club members. So it's a combination of things that are going on. But we're all in a situation where we just don't know when.